Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time, I'm happy to see you and I hope you like my particular brand of content. And if you've come again to visit, I'm extra happy to see you. It means you've liked and subscribed or rung the bell, and I hope all of you do that if you haven't done that yet. I know some people say, oh, wait to the end and make sure you like what you hear, but just do it now, just in case you forget. I'll soon have some blurbs coming up to do that on the video. So I'm dressed a little different to what you normally see me as, and that's because I just had we call it a business meeting, but really one of the downsides of being a contractor is you always have to kind of keep one eye on the job market, and the only way to do that really is having your details out there, usually using an agent. And if somebody wants to speak to you, you speak to them and just get an idea of the things that they want and some of the things that you can offer at your level, because it's not always a straightforward thing of what's presented on a job description. So I know we live in an age now where a lot of people are like, oh, it doesn't matter what you wear, just as long as you can prove yourself and you can do the job. But the thing that you always have to remember is there's lots of you out there who can do the job just as well or better. So employers are trying to make a decision on who they're going to give their hard-earned money to, because that's essentially what it is. And they have to make it based on what you present of yourself. And that's not always hard to do. So if everyone has the right amount of work or the right amount of qualifications or experience, the next thing is, well, what else do you bring outside of that? Now, one of the things you have to impress upon a potential employer or client is that you'll take his money serious, you'll take his time serious, and without they having a crystal ball, one of the ways that they can get an impression of that is if you take yourself serious, or they feel like you're taking yourself more seriously than you would otherwise. And part of that is how you present yourself for the interview. Now, these days, especially for software developers, they'll tell you, look, if they want it to be a semi-formal or formal or relaxed atmosphere, they'll say to you, dress is no problem. However, I would say that if you're of a certain age, you should try and look some ways office-like. So even if they say no need for a tie and suits and stuff, wear a relaxed shirt with a collar, but still rock a suit. And I say so sitting at the side of the table where I'm either hiring or advising to hire, because one of the things you find as you grow in your job, whether or not you have a title, especially in this business, you'll be brought in to give your impression of a particular candidate. Now, you might not say, oh, he came in here with a t-shirt, but I must admit, maybe it's just how we're raised, maybe it's background, but somebody rocks up to what you consider as a business meeting wearing jeans and t-shirt, automatically your head goes, well, unless this guy is like, the best of the best that you've ever seen, you just think there's some things you do to present yourself, and dressing up in some sort of business wear is the right approach. Now, having said that, I don't really wear ties. Weddings sometimes, funerals sometimes, but mostly because I have a short neck, so I find it really uncomfortable. That's my story. But it gives an impression, so it's best. And especially when you're doing interviews from home, you do it and you take it off as soon as the interview is over. Having said that, I'm getting kind of hot, so I'm gonna derobe right now. That's why you're not accustomed, isn't it? And a lot of times when you go, they'll say, feel free to make yourself a little more comfortable, because especially with software development, you might have like a technical interview where you have to actually do a test. They'll leave you alone for like a half hour or something. So, this is good. You just let them know that you can take it easy. Now, I think more and more interviews will be held in these kinds of settings. They'll ask you to, just do a Zoom thing. And just today I heard of a platform called HireVue, where essentially it's just like recorded questions that they ask you and you respond to. I didn't do it. I haven't done it yet, so I don't know how it goes. But from the introductory blurb, it's pretty straightforward, and it saves everyone time, because even without COVID times, you don't want to be traveling all the way to a potential hire, and either you or them get this feeling like, I really don't want to work here. They're like, the atmosphere, I don't like the area, or something like that. But really, I think it's about them liking you, isn't it? Because the fact that you're in an interview means you want a job of some kind. And if you're of a certain age, I'm sure you've done a few of these already. So I just thought that since I was all dressed, I will just share some of my general impressions, maybe some things that you may not have come across, or if you're interviewing in the UK and you haven't done a lot of that, So one of the things that has come from doing multiple interviews, I can tell you, is that don't chase every interview that you can do, or at least not at the same time. So when I first came, because you're worried about if you're going to get hired, or just trying to build your confidence or something, I used to attend maybe up to 4 interviews a day, and it's because a lot of times, especially in the permanent market, you could have up to like 6 interviews. There was a time it was very ridiculous, but I think it's actually coming back there around now. It's becoming a buyer's market, i.e. the employer has a lot more choice, because aside from COVID, just the number of market factors that have just meant that employers can be a bit more choosy. And also, one of the downsides of being a senior developer or an experienced developer is that you're now competing with those guys who are coming out fresh out of uni and being taught what they need to know straight off. So there's all of that you have to contend with, and the kind of roles you'd be going for would tend to be higher paying jobs. So employers are obviously more guarded about giving someone a chunk of money. So all of that means that the interview process, if you're of a certain age, let's say in your 40s or above, is extra hard. But even if you're young, they sort of, some employers want somebody who they can ingrain in their company for a long term, so they're trying to figure out all kinds of things about you aside from just what you can do and your qualifications. But the thing about doing that multiple interviews in one day is you can get so jaded by them and not realize that's the problem. So it just becomes, let's say from the first one, you're sitting up straight, you're doing all the things you would have been taught at school, firm handshake and speaking properly and answering questions nice and succinct, and with each interview you'll find you learn something that you didn't get to do in that time. I should have answered it that. And what happens is you go through a point of being a little tired because you're presenting yourself all the time, and especially if you start getting rejections, because you inevitably will. You're not going to get every role you go for. But what you might find is by the 3rd day of doing 4 interviews a day, you might just rock up, just drop your coat, sit down and go, so I start rattling off answers before you even get the question, like, so what are you guys offering here, and you can start coming across as, okay, this guy is not serious, and unfortunately you only realize it afterwards. Sometimes they're kind enough to tell the agent who sent you there, and I keep a word about agents, but that's one of the things I would advise. The other thing is, you're not gonna know what's in the employer's head all the time, and they're not always going to tell you exactly what you're looking for. So they might ask you a question which you feel you've answered properly, and then they ask you in a slightly different way, so you keep answering as you're getting them, but just in case you didn't quite give them what they wanted, it's always good at the end of the interview, because especially in the UK, they'll say to you, is there anything you want to ask us? And I think that's generally everywhere. And a lot of the times we're sort of, I guess a lot of people are brought up just to be like, oh no, it's great, thank you very much. But actually, one of the things that I found has helped me over time is to say to them, well, is there anything that you need for me to clarify or go over? And sometimes they'll give you the feedback as well. We thought you'd answer ... this way, or we thought you'd say so. Now, usually that means that somebody else has answered in a way that they want you to answer. Very few times you may get a call back, but it's always feedback you can take to the next interview, which is, I think it's a good when you ask that, because if there's something that they do ask you to clarify and you do it better or say it better, it stands you in good stead for the next level of interview. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. I didn't plan this. It's just since I put my clothes on and I was in the vibes, I thought I'd just put this out. There'll be other videos about the professional and things aside from these two that I haven't mentioned. But I also thought I'd say something because I mentioned about the constant interviews of contracting in the UK, and I think I've alluded to this before, contract versus permanent. Freelancing is what you call it other places. But I think when you're young, if you've just started in the biz, I'd say a permanent established company is a good way to start, because you learn a lot and it's a good way to start. You learn a lot about the industry and you get a constant footing. But what you find is that the level of growth you can make in this industry, and I think maybe a lot of, I don't want to use the word technical, but electronic based businesses, I'd say, you'd find that you probably have to move around before you start to realize your potential. Back in the day, I said back in the day, early 2000s, 2.5 years tended to be the time computer professionals stayed in one place. But everything was new and there was a lot of us dashing around and we were in demand. Now I suspect that it's gone longer. And if you've been in the business for, now we're talking say 20 years, if you'd stayed in a permanent role for all that time, chances are you're some kind of manager or on that senior level, and you're not really moving around that much, because now you're controlling more and managing the process of people that are now coming into the system. So I'm considering now the next 20 years of my career, because really that's the last 20 years of me working. So whatever I want to do professionally, I need to try and make sure I'm positioning myself in the right place to do that. And if you're in that situation, you find that you've just been sort of, getting along, doing your thing, and now you're thinking, wow, I need to, decide what it is I want to do with the next 20 years of my career, but feeling kind of afraid to move from where you are, because like if you've been a place 10 years, chances are you're well ingrained in there, and you know the system, and you know the work, and you're highly valued. But you might feel like that's not where you want to spend the rest of your career. The only thing I can tell you is you won't know unless you try. Now, one way to try a lot of different positions out is to go contracting. It's a bit of a mess at the moment because in the UK there's a sort of clamp down, not on contracting, but on companies essentially taking on contractors but using them as permanent staff. Now, there's some tax breaks to be had from that, let's say some tax advantages. So there's a clamp down on that, and because businesses are a bit spooked about that, contracting roles are kind of getting squeezed, and we're being forced into a sort of hybrid situation. I'll talk about what I know of IR35 another time, which is what they call it here. But I imagine these are challenges that governments are facing around the world, because people working for themselves is not really something that I think was envisaged to be happening on a large scale. So it's all part of this new normal that we're going through. So to sum up, keep your eye on the ball, whether you're a contractor or not. Just every now and again, know what's available. It's all part of knowing your worth. If you are going to go to an interview, unless otherwise told, treat it as a business meeting, as if you're meeting clients who want to invest their money and give it to you, and they want to know that, you know, there's less chance of you just being laissez-faire with their monies. If you're at the early stage and thinking that you need to do multiple interviews as soon as possible, just be careful. I would advise no more than 2 a day, and that's whether you do a telephone one or a face-to-face one, or what will become more happening more often, or more common, is the online interview. And just go for it if you're comfortable in your role but don't really want to stay there all of the time. Just go for it. And yeah, so aside from that, hope all is well with everyone. Like, subscribe, hit the button. This is the sort of thing I do, just a conversation, and hopefully sharing some of my insights. Oh, I forgot to say, you notice I still have I say Roland Rabbit. Some people say Peter, but I think it's Peter's cooler cousin. You know, keep something like that in the background. Just let the people that you might potentially be working with know you've got a fun side as well. You know, no need to explain it, just have it there. All right, that's all from me. You take care. Keep smiling, keep progressing, upwards and onwards.